There comes a point in life where you realize that what's holding you back isn't the world around you. It's the world within you. The battles you fight in your mind are shaping the life you live every single day. You can't walk in victory with a defeated mindset, and you can't expect peace while feeding on fear and doubt. But here's the truth. God never created you to stay stuck. He created you to grow, to rise, and to transform from the inside out. Your thoughts, your attitude, your faith, they are not small things. They are the keys to unlocking the life God has already written for you. When your mindset aligns with His promises, everything around you begins to shift. So if you've been feeling lost, weary, or trapped in the same cycle over and over again, this message is for you. Because today, you're not just going to hear words. You're going to feel something change inside of you. You're going to discover how faith can renew your mind, how gratitude can restore your heart, and how obedience can release the blessings waiting for you. Stay with me till the very end, not just to listen, but to receive. Because by the time this message is over, you'll see life differently. You'll think differently. And when your thinking changes, your life will never be the same again. Your attitude is a mirror of your faith. It reveals what you truly believe about God, yourself, and life. You can say you trust God, but your attitude in the face of hardship exposes the truth. When everything is going right, it's easy to have a positive outlook. But when life becomes uncertain, when doors close, and when prayers seem unanswered, that's when your attitude reveals whether your faith is rooted in feelings or in truth. Your attitude is not just about how you act, it's about how you think, how you perceive, and how you choose to respond to what life gives you. Faith and attitude are deeply connected. You cannot walk in faith with a defeated attitude. You cannot speak victory while thinking defeat. God never promised us a life free of challenges, but He did promise that He would be with us in every challenge. So when you maintain an attitude of faith, you're saying, God, I don't understand what you're doing, but I trust that you are doing something. That's the mindset that moves mountains, because God responds to faith, not frustration. Your attitude is a reflection of what dominates your heart. If your heart is filled with fear, your attitude will show fear. If your heart is filled with gratitude and trust, your attitude will radiate peace. That's why Scripture says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Whatever fills your inner world will eventually spill out into your outer world. You can't hide what's truly inside of you for long. Pressure reveals it. And when pressure comes, your attitude becomes your testimony. People may never read the Bible, but they will read your life. Your peace in chaos, your hope in pain, and your joy in uncertainty are the greatest sermons you will ever preach. When your attitude is anchored in faith, it changes how you see everything. Instead of focusing on what's missing, you focus on what's promised. Instead of saying, why is this happening to me? You begin to say, what is God trying to teach me through this? Faith doesn't deny reality, it redefines it. A person with faith looks at the storm and says, this may be rough, but my God is still greater. And that mindset, the decision to trust God even when life doesn't make sense, is what separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. An attitude rooted in faith is powerful because it refuses to surrender to negativity. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about believing that even the imperfect is being used for your good. When your faith is strong, you can look at a setback and still say, something good is coming out of this. That's not blindness, that's belief. That's what faith-filled attitude does. It gives you the ability to see beyond the moment, to see through God's perspective. Every day, life gives you opportunities to choose your attitude. You can't control what happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. You can either allow circumstances to shape your attitude, or you can allow your attitude, shaped by faith, to transform your circumstances. When you wake up in the morning, you get to decide, will I see this day as a burden or a blessing? Will I let worry control my thoughts, or will I let gratitude guide my heart? The moment you choose faith, your perspective changes. You start walking differently, talking differently, and thinking differently. That shift is where transformation begins. When your attitude reflects faith, it strengthens every part of your life. It strengthens your relationships because faith teaches you to forgive instead of holding grudges. It strengthens your peace because faith reminds you that God is still in control. It strengthens your confidence because faith declares that if God called you, He will equip you. You stop depending on external validation and start drawing strength from internal conviction. Faith produces a quiet confidence that no storm can steal. Look at the great heroes of faith, people who walk with unshakable attitudes. Joseph was betrayed, falsely accused, and imprisoned, yet he maintained an attitude of faith. He didn't allow bitterness to rule him. He believed that every setback was setting him up for something greater. Daniel faced lions but refused to lose his peace. Paul was beaten, imprisoned, and rejected, yet his letters were filled with joy and thanksgiving. What did they all have in common? A faith-based attitude that refused to be defined by circumstance. That's the kind of mindset God wants you to carry. He doesn't want you to live moved by what you see. He wants you to live moved by what you believe. Every challenge in your life is an opportunity to demonstrate the depth of your faith. When you maintain the right attitude in a difficult situation, heaven takes notice. Because attitude rooted in faith is a form of worship. It says, God, even if nothing changes right now, I will still trust you. Many people lose their blessings not because they don't pray enough, but because their attitude cancels out their faith. They pray for breakthrough but complain in waiting. They ask for strength but speak words of defeat. You cannot walk in faith and speak in fear. You cannot expect victory while nurturing negativity. Your words and your attitude must agree with what you believe. That's why faith isn't just believing that God can. It's living like He will. A faith-filled attitude is contagious. It inspires others. It shifts atmospheres. When people see you smile in a storm, they start to believe that peace is possible. When they see you remain kind in chaos, they start to wonder where your strength comes from. That's how faith spreads. Through attitude, through example, through quiet confidence in God. You don't need everything to change around you for your life to change. Sometimes all you need is a new attitude. The same job can feel like a blessing instead of a burden if your attitude changes. The same home, the same people, the same routine can feel renewed when your perspective shifts. When you approach every day with faith, gratitude, and expectation, life begins to feel lighter. Not because your problems disappeared, but because your faith grew stronger than your problems. So ask yourself, what does my attitude say about my faith? Do I trust God enough to remain positive when the outcome is uncertain? Do I believe His promises enough to keep walking when the path is unclear? Because faith without the right attitude is incomplete. It's not enough to believe in God's power. You must also reflect His peace. The truth is, your attitude is the steering wheel of your life. If you keep it pointed toward faith, gratitude, and hope, you will always move forward. If you allow it to drift toward negativity and fear, you will always find yourself stuck. But when your heart is grounded in faith, nothing can stop you from rising. Because a faith-filled attitude doesn't just change how you see the world, it changes how heaven moves on your behalf. So today, make the choice to let your attitude reflect your faith. Let it show that you believe God is good, even in hard seasons. Let it show that you trust Him, even when life doesn't make sense. Because when your attitude reveals faith, your life begins to reveal God's power. Gratitude is one of the most powerful forces that can transform a person's life. It is not just a feeling, it's a decision, a lifestyle, and a declaration of faith. When you live with gratitude, you are saying, God, I may not have everything I want, but I thank you for everything I have. That single choice shifts your entire perspective. You start seeing blessings instead of burdens, opportunities instead of obstacles, and purpose even in pain. Gratitude changes the atmosphere of your heart, and when your heart changes, your life changes. Many people think they will be thankful once everything goes right, once they get the promotion, once the relationship works, once the miracle comes. But true gratitude doesn't wait for perfection. It begins in the middle of imperfection. It's easy to be thankful on the mountain, but real faith is proven in the valley. When you can still lift your hands and thank God in seasons of uncertainty, you are demonstrating spiritual maturity. You are saying that your joy isn't tied to what's happening around you, it's anchored in who God is. Gratitude is an act of spiritual warfare. The enemy's goal is to fill your mind with complaint, comparison, and discontentment, because he knows that a grateful heart is a powerful heart. When you start to complain, you weaken your faith. But when you start to thank God, you strengthen your spirit. You cannot be negative and grateful at the same time. It's impossible. Gratitude silences negativity. It breaks the power of fear and self-pity. It lifts your eyes from what's wrong and helps you focus on what's right. When you start counting your blessings, you realize that God has already given you far more than you deserve. There are people who have less than you but live happier lives, not because their circumstances are easier, but because their hearts are more grateful. Gratitude is not about possessions, it's about perspective. When your heart is full of thanksgiving, even small things become beautiful. A simple meal feels like a feast, a kind word feels like a gift, and every sunrise feels like a miracle. You start to notice God's fingerprints in the details of your day, the breath in your lungs, the peace in your home, the people who love you, the doors that are still open. Gratitude opens your eyes to see that God is working even when you can't see everything clearly. The Bible teaches us to give thanks in all circumstances, not for all circumstances, but vev in them. That means even when things don't go the way you planned, you can still find reasons to be thankful. Gratitude is not denial, it's declaration. It's saying, God, I may not understand what you're doing, but I trust that you're doing something good. When you thank God in the storm, you show Him that your faith is deeper than your feelings. You show Him that your trust is not based on outcomes, but on His character. A thankful heart attracts God's presence. When you complain, you invite heaviness, but when you praise, you invite peace. The moment you choose gratitude, something shifts in the atmosphere. That's why praise is so powerful. It changes you before it changes your situation. When Paul and Silas were in prison, they had every reason to complain, but instead they began to sing praises. Their gratitude didn't wait for freedom, it created it. Their chains broke, and their circumstances changed, all because they chose to be thankful in the dark. That's the miracle of gratitude. It brings freedom to your soul before freedom reaches your hands. Gratitude is also the key to multiplication. When Jesus fed the 5,000, He didn't begin with abundance. He began with gratitude. He took 5 loaves and 2 fish, lifted them toward heaven, and gave thanks. And in that moment of thanksgiving, the miracle began. The bread multiplied. The lesson is clear: what you thank God for will grow. If you thank Him for what you have, He will increase it. But if you complain about what's missing, you'll lose sight of what's already there. Gratitude turns not enough into more than enough. Every day, you have a choice to grumble or to be grateful. When you grumble, you magnify your problems. When you're grateful, you magnify God's goodness. The Israelites wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, not because God couldn't lead them into the promised land, but because they kept complaining. Their attitude delayed their destiny. Gratitude, on the other hand, speeds up progress. It prepares your heart for blessing because it shows God that you're ready to handle more. God cannot trust us with more if we're ungrateful for what we already have. Gratitude also heals the heart. Many people carry bitterness and pain because they focus on what went wrong. But when you start to thank God even for the lessons that came through pain, you begin to heal. Gratitude transforms your scars into testimonies. It takes the sting out of disappointment and replaces it with wisdom. When you say, God, thank you for what didn't work out because it redirected me to something better, you're growing in spiritual strength. You begin to realize that some closed doors were protection, not rejection. Gratitude helps you see God's mercy even in moments that once hurt you. Sometimes gratitude is not loud, it's quiet. It's that peaceful moment when you look around and realize that even though life isn't perfect, you have enough. You have people who care about you, a God who loves you, and a future filled with purpose. That realization brings peace that money can't buy and success can't replace. Gratitude is the soul's way of saying, it is well. Living with gratitude also keeps pride away. When you're thankful, you acknowledge that everything you have comes from God. You stop taking credit for your blessings and start giving glory to the one who made them possible. Gratitude keeps your heart humble, and humility keeps you close to God. The proud person says, I earned this, but the grateful person says, God, you blessed me with this. That difference determines how far you'll go, because God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. Gratitude is contagious. When you live with a thankful heart, you lift others up. People feel your joy, your peace, and your hope. Your gratitude becomes a light that points others to God's goodness. When others see you smiling through trials, they realize that faith is real, that peace is possible, and that God is still good. You become living proof that gratitude isn't about circumstances, it's about trust. If you want to change your life, start by changing what you focus on. Instead of focusing on what's missing, focus on what's working. Instead of replaying everything that went wrong, remember everything that went right. When you do, you'll begin to see that gratitude doesn't just make you feel better, it makes you become better. It makes your faith stronger, your heart lighter, and your future brighter. So, take a moment today and thank God for the little things. Thank Him for the breath in your lungs, the roof over your head, the lessons you've learned, the strength you've gained, and the grace that carried you this far. Gratitude isn't just the right attitude, it's the key to abundance. The more thankful you are, the more joy you'll experience, the more peace you'll carry, and the more blessings you'll attract. Gratitude turns every ordinary day into a gift, every problem into an opportunity, and every moment into a chance to praise the one who gave you life. A godly attitude is one that refuses to stay stuck. It doesn't make excuses or wait for perfect conditions. It keeps moving, growing, and trusting God even when the road is uncertain. Life is a journey of constant transformation, and those who keep the right attitude through the process are the ones who experience real breakthrough. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It's a choice. Every single day, you are given a decision: will you stay the same or will you rise higher? God calls us to live a life that stretches us, challenges us, and shapes us into the image of Christ. But that can only happen when our attitude is one of growth and obedience. Growth begins where comfort ends. Many people pray for God to change their situation, but He often uses the situation to change them. That's why attitude is so important. Your attitude in the waiting, the testing, and the wilderness seasons reveals whether you're ready for the next level God has prepared. When you complain, resist, or give up too easily, you delay your own progress. But when you stay humble, teachable, and faithful, even when it's hard, you position yourself for promotion. God is not just watching what you do, He's watching how you do it. Your obedience in small things prepares you for greater responsibility. A growth mindset in faith means you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is God teaching me through this?" Every challenge carries a lesson, and every delay has a purpose. Sometimes God will hold back a blessing until your attitude is right, because He loves you too much to give you something that your character can't sustain. The waiting period is not punishment. It's preparation. When your heart is obedient and your attitude remains positive in that preparation, you are sowing seeds for a future harvest that will exceed your expectations. The truth is, obedience doesn't always feel easy or exciting. Sometimes God will ask you to walk away from people habits or environments that keep you comfortable but not fruitful. Sometimes He will call you into situations that make no sense to your natural mind. But faith-based obedience says, even when I don't understand, I will still trust you. That kind of obedience is the foundation of spiritual growth. Every time you choose God's will over your own, your faith deepens. Every time you say yes to His voice, even when it costs you something, you become more aligned with His purpose. God never blesses disobedience. You cannot live with a negative, resistant, or lazy attitude and expect divine favor to overflow. But when your attitude is rooted in willingness, when your heart says, "Lord, whatever you want, I will follow," doors begin to open, favor begins to flow, because obedience unlocks blessings. The right attitude doesn't demand understanding. It simply trusts that God knows best. That trust is what separates those who remain stagnant from those who step into supernatural growth. Your growth in life depends more on your inner posture than your outer position. You could be in a small place, but if your attitude is big, God will expand your territory. You could be doing something that seems insignificant, but if your spirit is excellent, God will elevate you. Look at David. Before he became king, he was just a shepherd boy, out in the field taking care of sheep. But he did it with the right attitude, with diligence, humility, and worship. When nobody was watching, he was faithful. When the opportunity came, he was ready. God saw his heart long before He gave him the throne. That's how God works. He tests your attitude in private before He rewards you in public. A person with a growth and obedience mindset doesn't complain about the process. They embrace it. They understand that pain is not a sign of defeat, but a sign of development. They don't resist change because they know change is necessary for destiny. When God prunes your life, it's not to harm you, it's to make you more fruitful. But you have to trust Him through the pruning. You have to keep the right attitude when things are being taken away, knowing that something better is being prepared. The right attitude says, "God, I may not see it now, but I believe this is for my good." Growth also requires humility. Pride says, "I already know enough." But wisdom says, "I can always learn more." When you remain humble and teachable, God can pour into you. But when you become rigid or self-satisfied, growth stops. The Spirit of God moves where there is surrender, not stubbornness. If you want to keep growing, you must stay open to correction, to learning, to stretching, to new levels of faith. Every time God exposes a weakness, it's an invitation to grow stronger. Every time He shows you a flaw in your character, it's not condemnation, it's construction. He's building something greater within you. Obedience and growth are also connected to perseverance. Sometimes God will test your consistency. He'll see if you can keep a good attitude even when progress feels slow. Many people start strong but give up before the miracle comes. They pray for 1 week, and when they don't see results, they lose heart. But spiritual growth means staying faithful even when results are invisible. It's about trusting that every act of obedience is making a difference. Even if you can't see it yet, every seed you plant in faith, every prayer, every act of kindness, every moment of patience is producing a harvest in the unseen. Your attitude during seasons of waiting reveals your readiness for the next level. Some people get bitter in waiting, others get better. The difference is attitude. When your heart is right, the waiting season becomes a training season. You learn endurance, patience, and faith. You develop the maturity to handle what's coming. God doesn't promote based on talent. He promotes based on attitude. He's looking for hearts that can handle blessings without being destroyed by them. When your attitude is rooted in obedience, you stop chasing feelings and start living by principles. You no longer serve God only when it feels good. You serve Him because you love Him. You no longer obey because it's convenient. You obey because it's right. That kind of commitment transforms your life from the inside out. It gives you stability in chaos, clarity in confusion, and peace in uncertainty. Because when your heart is surrendered, your path is secure. A growing attitude also produces joy. When you know you're evolving, when you see yourself becoming stronger, wiser, and more spiritually mature, there's a deep sense of fulfillment. You no longer compare yourself to others. You simply strive to become the best version of who God created you to be. Growth gives you freedom. It frees you from the past, from people's opinions, and from fear of failure, because you understand that every mistake is a lesson, every loss is preparation, and every step forward is victory. The truth is, life will test your attitude again and again. You will face seasons that tempt you to quit. You will encounter doors that close, prayers that take longer than expected, and people who misunderstand your purpose. But when your attitude is right, when you remain grateful, teachable, and obedient, you will always rise higher. God can take you from the pit to the palace in a moment, but only if your attitude in the pit proves that you can handle the palace. So don't let disappointment make you stagnant. Don't let delay make you doubt. Keep growing, keep trusting, keep obeying. Your attitude determines your altitude. When your heart stays soft, your faith stays strong, and your obedience remains firm, there is no limit to what God can do through you. Growth may be uncomfortable, but it is sacred. It's the process through which God molds you, shapes you, and prepares you for the destiny He has designed. Keep your attitude right in every season, and you will see that every challenge was a setup for your next chapter. Growth and obedience are not about perfection. They're about progression. As long as you keep saying yes to God, even when it's hard, you are moving forward. Because the moment your attitude aligns with His will, your life begins to reflect His glory. Life is shaped not by what we go through, but by how we choose to go through it. When your mind is renewed by faith, your heart filled with gratitude, and your attitude rooted in growth and obedience, transformation becomes inevitable. You begin to see that God never wastes a season, never ignores a prayer, and never overlooks a heart that trusts Him completely. Every challenge becomes a classroom where faith is strengthened. Every delay becomes an opportunity for development. And every act of obedience becomes a seed for your future blessing. The truth is simple yet powerful. If you change the way you think, you change the way you live. If you shift your attitude from fear to faith, from complaining to gratitude, and from comfort to growth, your entire life begins to rise to a new level. God is not finished with you yet. He's molding you, refining you, and preparing you for something greater than what you can currently see. You may not be where you want to be, but thank God you're not where you used to be. Growth is happening, even in silence. Transformation is taking place, even when you don't feel it. So as you walk out of this message, make a decision, a firm spiritual and personal decision to transform your mindset daily. Choose to believe when doubt whispers. Choose gratitude when life gets heavy. Choose obedience when it's inconvenient. Because every time you do, heaven takes notice, and your life begins to align more closely with God's divine purpose. The power to change your life is already within you. It begins in your mind and flows through your attitude. Remember this, a renewed mind creates a restored life. When your thoughts reflect God's truth, your words will carry power and your actions will carry impact. You were not born to live defeated or stuck. You were created to walk in victory, to shine God's light, and to be a living example of what transformation through faith looks like. So stay strong, stay grateful, and keep growing. Because the moment your mindset changes, your destiny begins to change too. Thank you so much for listening. I pray that these words awaken something deep within you, a fire to rise, to believe again, and to walk boldly into the life God destined for you. Remember, you are not limited by your past, your mistakes, or your circumstances. You are defined by your faith, your attitude, and your obedience to God's calling. Keep moving forward, keep trusting, and keep shining, because your best days are still ahead.